Carol, are you on? Thank you very much for participating. Carol Moore is the president of Burlington College, um, which is Oplerno's first partner in higher education, and wanted to, thank you for participating. And also, can you tell us a little bit about Burlington College and the programs that you have geared towards, producing, self-designed degrees and producing programs?
Well, thank you, Rob, for the introduction, and I appreciate your presentation to help guide students to get the best education at the lowest potential cost. And I'm happy to talk a little bit about Burlington College. It was founded just a little over 40 years ago. It was founded in response to community needs. It started with 14 students in someone's living room, and it was in direct response to the needs of Vietnam veterans returning from war. And since then has grown quite a bit and expanded its offerings, but has maintained its roots in individualized programs for student needs. And we do offer an array of liberal arts, more traditional type majors like writing and literature, human services, psychology, but we also offer an array of more art type majors in film and design and film and psychology, and we also offer fine arts and graphic design and woodworking. And we have the only program on the East Coast in transpersonal psychology. But that said, I want to focus on cost and on our individualized undergraduate degree. Students can come and design their own major, which means that they take most of the general education in writing, creative arts, historical perspective, science, math, culture, etc., and then they design their own individual major. They can double major if they choose, or they can take a major with one or two minors. We do encourage students to do interdisciplinary work, but it's up to them with a faculty guide to design their own major. Some of the majors that have been popular in the past are areas like art and social change, media activism, environmental science, literature, media and social justice, philosophy, sustainable studies, etc. The list is quite long, as a student can design their own in basically any field they choose.
And Burlington College was one of the first institutions to really embrace that that whole notion of self-designed, a long time ago.
Yes, actually, that's the way the college started. The veterans that came back from the Vietnam War essentially designed their own majors around a couple of basic theories, and the theory was experience, and experience in the community and applying what you learn in theory. So there were very strong links to the community and experiential learning. And if we look at cost, as you were talking so specifically to that, the college has always been sensitive to the cost of higher education, even though it is a private institution. And there are a number of things that the college has done. Several years ago, the college decided that as a first-year student entered, that year's tuition would remain with that student throughout their 4 years. So there would be no increase in tuition when they got into their sophomore, junior, or senior year. In addition, for the last 2 years, we've actually frozen the tuition. So this fall, for example, students will actually pay tuition that was established in 2013.
So that's a substantial savings considering the costs on average for higher ed are rising at about 3 to 6% a year. And so
That's right.
in 4 years, you could see a substantial increase in your tuition costs, which you all are avoiding.
Right. And in addition, then the student saves a significant percentage as they go through the 4 years because their tuition is fixed at whatever year they enter. In addition, the college has put approximately $500,000 into scholarships for individuals in various areas. And of course, they can get their Pell Grants before taking, a loan. You mentioned, Rob, the cost of room and board, which is significant at many institutions. Burlington has chosen to go a different route. We have housing primarily in the Burlington community, more apartment-style living, so students prepare their own meals, which generally saves them a significant amount of money as compared to a meal plan at a traditional college. And we also price our housing at cost to the college. Most institutions make a surplus on the housing costs, but we chose not to do that. So students save considerable amount there as well. And also, as you mentioned, all of our students actually must have an internship and can have up to 3, and we try to help them identify a paid internship so that they're earning credits, earning experience in their field, and also making some money to pay for their education. And I'm sorry, go ahead, Rob.
So you've one of the things that I was really impressed with Burlington College is about the evaluation and the transfer credit policies that you all have, Carol, because it's it's really good. So could you just talk a little bit about that, and do you see students taking advantage of sort of being able to Burlington College being the hub of their education, where they're getting the advising, where they're getting a lot of the specialized classes that they need. But can you talk a little bit about the way in which you guys are thinking about transfer credits and also evaluation for life experience?
Sure. We accept transfer students with associate's degrees, so we take 60 to 65 credits, and actually we will take as many as 90 transfer credits. They may not all transfer in the exact field that a student may want to pursue, but they are transferred at least as elective credits. So we have pretty liberal transfer policies, and we try and recruit many students from community colleges, 2-year state colleges, where, as you mentioned before, they can earn an associate's degree at a bit lower cost and then transfer into Burlington. And additionally, any student, whether they start, year 1 or whether they start, let's say, at the junior level, they can apply for up to 12 credits of life experience, and we'll take those credits as well. So a student can really transfer quite a bit into the college and complete their degree. So they have a lot of opportunities. We also are very sensitive, since many of our students, actually almost all of our students, work. and some of them work almost full time. We schedule our classes in blocks of 2 and 3 hours so that a student can schedule work around those blocks of time. And our faculty are again sensitive to this and try to connect students out into the community in their field of study so that they get a double benefit of working and making some money, but also getting some experience in their chosen field.
So, what sort of advice would you give to a student in terms of the different factors to balance when they're starting to look at colleges? Because very soon the fall arrives, and for juniors and seniors in high school, they're starting to take a look at the colleges. But also, that's one potential segment of people who will come to engage in higher education. So could you talk a little bit about what they balance, and then, if you would, what factors should a non-traditional student, so a student who might be a caregiver, taking care of children, or taking care of an elderly parent, or some member of the community, what sort of factors should they be looking at when they're trying to figure out what higher ed option is going to be best for them?
Well, I think if you're looking at a more traditional age student, up to they're in their 20s or teens, I think they may be looking for a full college experience. So they do want to have a sort of a social life, if you will. They may want to live on campus and get that experience. So those are some factors. But to me, the most important factors are the values of the institution, because education is not value-free. Every institution has its own culture, it has its own values, and I think it's very important for a student to understand what that culture and what those values are to see if it's going to be a good fit. And they also need to look at, okay, what is the highest quality I can get for the lowest price? And there, that's very individualized to determine. And these days, I would say that students should be looking for experience built into their education, because the job market is competitive, and you go to employers and they want some experience. And if you can show them a resume where you've had 3 internships and you have 3 letters of reference from the internship placement, then you have a leg up. And that whole issue of fit and culture and values, getting the highest quality education for the lowest cost, and making sure that that education is going to prepare you to get that first job.
Yeah, and I think that only is going to happen if students have much more control over their education. And Burlington College, what you all are doing, you're placing students at the center, because you do have the student plans, the ways in which they're evaluated, and also the fact that they have so much input into their program. And I think it's at a much higher level than happens at most institutions of higher ed, where there's that high touch and where you're working with students to create it. And that is the legacy of when Burlington College was started. But that's also the cornerstone of 21st century education, which has to do with customization, high touch, and flexibility. And so long as the standards are rigorous, everything works out really, really well. And that's what you all are doing, in my opinion.
It really is, because day one, students come into class and the first thing they do is work with their classmates and their instructor to set their own personal learning goals for that particular class. And that actually goes into their file. And at the end of the year, or the end of the semester actually, the faculty member goes back and sits with students individually and says, well, did you meet these goals? What did you learn, and did you accomplish what you set out to accomplish? So students really must be engaged. They can't sit in the back of the room and hang out in a course here. They have to really take part in their own education. And that's how they're evaluated at the end of the course. They can get a grade if they want it, an A, B, C, D, but standard grading is a narrative evaluation.
We've got a question from the audience, which is, do you still run trips to Cuba?
Cuba, yeah. And the answer is yes, we still do. There are two options. Students can spend a semester at the University of Havana, or they can opt to take a trip, and most of the trips are 1 week. There are a couple that are 2 weeks, but they can go on a variety of trips, and we offer them in fields such as legal studies, education, agriculture, business, areas such as those. There's another one that's quite popular, is street photography in Havana. So we make up a trip based around student interest and the university itself.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see over the next couple of years how, since things are opening up between Cuba and the United States, about how it opens up, and also with that long-standing relationship, Cuba also has incredible contacts in Latin America and Africa, and to see how that that expands with the opportunities that since you guys were I think one of the only ones who were able to head and do educational trips and exchanges between the U.S. and Cuba. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and our faculty are very in tune to the educational value of trips in general. So, for instance, our film studies students go to Lake Placid for a film festival. They'll go out to Sundance, which of course is a famous film festival. And this year we may actually have a trip to Cuba for their film festival. Our fine arts people go to New York. 2 years ago they went to Berlin because our faculty member was doing her own show in Berlin. So the faculty really try to get students outside of Vermont for the educational value.
Now, are you all accept, so if I wanted to access those programs and I was a student, I was not a student at Burlington College, you guys are open to that?
Oh, yes. Yes, the students from other universities and colleges, or individuals, who just have an interest, can certainly go on any of the Cuba trips, and we've taken students from other colleges on some of the film trips as well.
And since you are also accredited by NEASC, New England Association of Schools and Colleges,
right?
And so the issue of transferring your credits, those credits earned in those classes, to another institution is in many ways a whole lot easier than it would be to transfer those credits if you were with Oplerno.
Yes,
to be blunt, you guys have a higher level of accreditation.
Right, and we've never had a student have problems with, transferring a course. The credits have always been accepted. They may not be accepted for a very particular course, but they're always accepted as general education credits or elective credits.
That's great. Anything else you want to, any questions you have for me, or anything else you want to bring up? Do you want to talk about the master's programs, or you want to wait? Yeah.
Can do that. We have, in addition to the individualized undergraduate program, we have an individualized master's program. It's a new program. It's only 2 years old, but it works on the same premise. Students apply and they sit with a faculty advisor to map out a course of study, and then we recruit faculty either in the area or at some distance who's an expert in the field or fields that the student wants to study, and we connect them. They come to the college for a low residency to start them off, and then they work individually with the faculty members that we assign them. So interestingly, we had a student graduate last year in aeronautical engineering. We have a student coming in this year who's going to study textiles. Many of the students come in the fields of fine arts or psychology, but then there's always a few very unusual ones.
Yeah, and that flexibility of being able to do a self-designed master's program with experts so that you get your the kind of learning and educational experience that you want, that's really, really exciting. And again, it's one of the few places in the U.S., and I would suspect the world, that has the systems in place to create that type of flexible program. You know, we're really excited to be working with Burlington Colleges. You know, you expand your online presence and offerings because there's all kinds of different ways in which you know, we can both benefit from a partnership.
Absolutely. We're very excited about our partnership with Oplerno because this opens up a whole repertoire of experts to our students, both undergraduates and graduates, and a much broader array of course offerings than a small college can provide. And that's what we want to do, is give our students a full array of opportunities to pick and choose what they want to study and with whom.
Yep, and which is all what student-centered learning is about.
Yes.
Well, Carol, thank you so much for coming.
Right.
Okay.
Well, thanks, Rob, for inviting me. It was a fun conversation, and I hope folks listening got a lot of good thoughts about how to choose their college.
For whom the whole deal that they've been offered just doesn't seem to be there anymore.
Is this idea of collective revolting, which Occupy Student Debt was calling for.